people that might want to hurt you or carjack you or assault you, they're out there. You know what? It doesn't mean that it's not worth living life and going to places and doing things. It all ties together, but it has to start with the intention I want to make myself and my family safer.
Gary Harrington. We're here at Legacy Sessions recording our inaugural podcast for the Power of Prudence. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, good. Our first inaugural podcast, but we've been getting together and
for years now, right?
Shooting things, including targets occasionally for a few years.
Absolutely. No, so it's a pleasure, sir. Thank you. Again, we've been on this journey here for a little while, and I just feel like, this is just a great, kind of outlet for us to just have a deeper conversation. I know we've been shooting a lot of content, to your point, over the past couple of years. So, just for folks out there, in the land of the internet, like, give us a little bit of, kind of who you are and just kind of some of the work that you've been, doing over the past couple of years.
I'm Gary. I'm your typical, look at me, white male, middle-aged, senior citizen guy. I'm a former Marine officer. Then I resigned and became an enlisted Special Forces guy. Did time as a assaulter in Delta Force. Did a bunch of classified Army stuff, projects. And then after I retired from the Army, went into the agency and was a operations officer in the CIA for 13 years.
Wow. Well, I think that's a lot, so, out of your career, kind of what has been your favorite part of the journey?
You asked me your favorite part of the journey. To me, it's a life journey.
Uh-huh.
So even though it's 35 years, maybe for younger people, that seems like forever, but it's a part of my life. And I have good memories and great experience from that, along with, a bag of, along with a bag of other stuff that maybe weren't the best memories, right? And so it's part of that process. And I finished my time in the military and the agency with a hunger to keep serving and to help. I used to think that I risked my life for people back home. Well, hey, I survived. I didn't have to give my life. So now what do I do to make my life worthwhile in these years? And so, you and I have talked about ways to serve the community at large, to try to help people in their journeys, maybe by taking some of my experiences that are different than what most people go through, and help shed light on some of those ways.
Absolutely. No. And I think, the great part of like your journey and what I've kind of discovered is like, it's just like all the knowledge and like the information that you've really kind of obtained, from like the different phases of your career and how you're applying that now. Right. Cause I think a lot of it is just more kind of like understanding, kind of what it is, that what really, how safety really is in the real world. Cause it's different in the military, right? Like I think in the military it's more tactical. There's more intel, there's more information when you're going into a situation, or I could be wrong. It could be different. So talk about like, kind of making the transition to what you were doing in the military and then kind of what you're currently doing. Cause I think that like a lot of folks, really, would be interested in kind of hearing about that. Cause I think that for me, that's really interesting. Cause it's like, how do you apply everything that you've learned from your military years into kind of like the work that you're doing today?
I think it took a transition time for me, because I think when you first leave military or agency, you kind of get focused on the skills, right? Everybody thinks, oh, Delta guy shooting, or maybe talk about, breaching all your skills for building explosives to, blow windows and doors and walls and, open to enter, or an infill technique, maybe halo jumping, scuba diving, all those things. And yeah, those are a part of what you learn. But my experience, the things that keep you alive or made me survive the close encounters I had and all, really dealt more with my planning, my preparation, my mindset, my attention to detail, my situational awareness, and all those things. When I started looking at, I thought that was things that we did in the military when we went to bad places. Then we started having terror attacks here. And now I've seen that grow as unrest and crime and protest and mass shootings, and all the violence seems like, wow, that's here part of everyday people's lives now. So how can I translate that experience that I got into something that people could use here today?
Absolutely.
And I started at first by working with families and some small groups to teach them techniques like anti-assault, situational awareness, some basic self-defense moves, escape, anti-kidnap and how to escape if you've been kidnapped or restrained, stuff like that. And I just kept evolving to look now at, as I can, every part of life that people in today's societies in America or other places encounter, and how we can make people safer. And I guess it's kind of a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
I'm always confused. Do I tell people I work in safety or in security? So if I say security, what comes to everybody's mind is a bodyguard. I don't do that. I have done that, trained to do it, but that's not what we do.
Yeah, it's not.
And in safety, you kind of think of OSHA and
training,
safety, safety guard, crossing guard at a school,
like procedures
or
safety, follow
like that.
Yeah.
And it's not really that. What we're doing is sort of combining those worlds. It is a way to be self-reliant and to go about living your life, go where you want to, but with the proper planning, preparation, and mindset, so that you're prepared to overcome any threat to your life that might pop up.
Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit more about, the mission behind the Power of Prudence, how the Power of Prudence really came, to light. I know you've been working on it for a couple of years, and just kind of a quick backstory. Gary and I met, working on a very, kind of important event that, we all both have worked throughout the years with Spookstock, and then, that kind of evolved. You were doing more kind of what I would call in my industry experiential, right? Like you were doing like competitions and bringing some of the patrons and some of the sponsors into that. And that's how we really got connected. I know you were, we were filming content for that, which was a lot of fun. And I think that's how we built our rapport and was like, hey, what else are you doing? And that's how we kind of, formed our relationship. So talk a little bit more about what was the intention behind Power of Prudence? How did you start it? What was the origin story for you?
After leaving the agency, I worked for example, there was a finance company that used to hire me to put on special forces or intelligence community activities for potential. Basically, it was a business development event. Because a finance company, they all have boxes for basketball and hockey or football and baseball, and go to dinners and golfing outings. But this finance company, and it sort of suited the audience of clients they were going after, thought, but nobody else is bringing people and giving a special ops shooting experience. And I'd bring in SEALs, special forces guys, and we'd really give people something very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And over the course of that, at one point I was asked to do an event for women CEOs only.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to shift away from a focus on shooting and some of those things and talk about, like we covered how to be safe prevent from being carjacked or abducted.
Yeah.
They went into kidnap and how to prevent kidnap, how to act during a kidnap, and then how to escape and when to escape from that. And from that, I think for me, that's when the light turned on that wow, I saw the change in people and how a light bulb came on.
Yeah.
And that's what first started getting me think that, wow, it's not the shooting and the driving and all that stuff. It's these other basic skills and mindset that really can change average people's lives. So that's when, I started trying to plan for a way to do that on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And then, after talking to you and as our friendship began, you started, cueing me in to, think a little bit broader and bigger. And, we've been on this journey. It's been a while because I did not then start off like most people would do with a, simple little thing and start here and trickle there.
Yeah.
We've spent now really since 2018.
18, yeah. 6 years.
Yeah,
6 years
6
working
years
together.
of journey of shifting and changing, but setting our
Evolving.
sights, on something bigger. And I'm in a way I'm glad it's taken this amount of time because now working with families all around the U.S., different families, and teaching these skills, I think it's helped shift and transform what I think a family wants or needs or how to
Yeah.
best do it. So, it's been a long effort, but I believe in the end product and what we're getting ready to be able to share with people, it's going to show.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty of it is, and and one of the things we used to talk about a lot, as the journey was kind of evolving was, good products take a little bit of time, right? And I think a lot of folks, want to rush, products because, they're chasing profits or they're chasing like a quick win. And one thing that I really have enjoyed working about you is kind of like your character and like, just kind of your approach to certain things and just, how, you kind of conduct yourself, not only as like a businessman, but also as just a man, and I think that that's, coming from a person that didn't grow up with a father, like I felt like, that you were teaching a lot of life skills that men should know. Right. And like, I think the power of prudence to me, as I like look at it, like in being close to it, but also being, kind of like not a client per se, but like a customer and kind of someone that's digesting what you're teaching and your, like your methodology and how you're working. So talk about a little bit about, just kind of the evolution. Like, I know that you've done a lot of training, for, family offices and for, different types of clients, like laying the foundation just so the audience knows, like, what were some of these kind of like training, that you were doing, or these like, weekend retreats and things like that, like just to give folks a little bit more context on just, kind of like the details of like what that looks like,
Well, one of the foundational things that I always teach, and I will not teach anything without starting out with situational awareness. You have to be aware of what's going on around you
Mm-hmm.
to be able to perceive a threat and process what's going on, and then make a decision about an action to take that's going to save your life.
Mm-hmm.
So always when I go teach, we start out with that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people don't realize we always talk about what happens to you and what we call an acute stress situation. So that basically that's when you get the shit scared out of you. So you might lose your life or get hurt.
Yeah.
And everybody has heard of fight or flight,
Yeah.
but actually it's fight, flight, or freeze. And I like to talk or educate people on why one or the other happens. And we certainly don't want to freeze in a life-threatening situation. We want to be able to act. So I like to talk about how you can prepare yourself so that doesn't happen.
So in your experience, do most people fight, flight, or freeze? Like what has been your experience with just, non-trained people? Because obviously, you have a ton of training and a ton of like expertise in that, but like what is that,
So, I mean, I'll talk statistically. Statistically, it's 10 to 15% will either fight or take an action.
Mm-hmm.
And this data comes mostly from stuff like plane crashes, interviews with survivors of plane crashes or ships that sink or some earthquakes, disasters like that, stuff like the Twin Towers on 9/11. So again, 10 to 15% will take some action.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest majority of people, like 70s, in the 70s percentile, will run, and they'll run in whatever direction. If they see someone running there, they're not thinking, they're just following that person. Or if there is the sound of gunfire or a threat one place, they're just going to blindly rush somewhere else. And then another 10 to 15% of the people just freeze. They don't move. And, an interesting note on that is that if you happen to be a person and your heart rate gets above 170 during one of these acute stress incidents or situations, the likelihood you'll freeze is a lot higher.
Why is that? Just because
I don't know. It's just statistically. I think if you think about it, there are some animals that's natural instinct is they freeze to protect themselves from predators.
Okay.
And I think that when your mind is processing the stimulus, either what you see, hear about a threat, that if it overwhelms your senses, think about people in an office complex that they're just used to sitting in their cubicle doing their job. Suddenly there's a boom and somebody's coming down the hallway shooting a shotgun.
Yeah.
It overwhelms their senses. They don't have a response built in. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, they've never heard that before.
Yeah, and it's a shock to see that sight and recognize the horror of it. And many of those people will freeze.
And you can kind of feel that, like, and I've felt similar situations to where, and you've known the feeling, it's like when you're about to almost get into a car accident, and then like you can feel that kind of like jerk, and like that you're trying to your body's reacting in a very kind of interesting way as far as like how it's like reacting in those. So and this is very interesting because obviously we've spent a lot of time together, but I've never really asked you. So like in your experience and just kind of being in like battles, like gunfire, feeling unsafe, like typically, like how does your body processing that? Like how are you processing that information?
Everybody has an initial fear response, and that's that adrenaline that happens when something first happens. All of us, we tend to tense, crouch, your eyes go wide open, blood pressure goes up, little things start happening like your blood starts pooling around your lungs and heart and away from the extremities. Your body is preparing you automatically. It's an autonomic response for fight or flight. So we all experience that. Then what happens after that initial rush depends on your experience, your personality, the mood you're in that day, or your training. I've we talk about military experience, but I've lived through 2 home invasions.
Yeah.
And in the first, I froze and curled up. I was 13. I
Come on, Gary. 13. You should have been out there.
13.
I'm just
Well,
messing with you.
but
Yeah.
but you think a lot of people, I think, sitting out there might think, how could anybody freeze? I mean, what do you mean? You can't tell me if something was happening, I'd do something. I'm telling you that I knew somebody was breaking into my parents' home, and I curled up in a ball, and fortunately,
Nothing happened to you.
I
Yeah.
nothing happened to me. Um,
So were you home alone? Or
I was in my parents' home, but I was
Okay.
sleeping in the basement away
Okay.
from the rest of the family.
Yeah.
And then you go forward to probably about 10 years after that. Now, I've been a Marine. I've been through some specialized training and combat and reacting to threats to your life, ambushes, stuff like that. I'm at my parents' a different home now where they live, and we had another home invasion.
Yeah.
But this time I had an automatic reaction that was essentially completely opposite of the other. And, I reacted. I tried to take out the
perpetrator.
the person that came in the house. So, I have those 2 very different reactions. And then I've had other experiences both in training and combat where, it's like you have to think your way through and make decisions, or you pre-plan some immediate actions if something bad happens.
Yeah.
And then something bad happens. And at first, yes, you go up and you don't know what you're going to do. But then, the other plan kicks in.
Absolutely.
And you can do that. So those are how to set those up in your life are part of the things I think that through the power of prudence we can impart to people. And unless you've been in through law enforcement training or military training, I think these days a lot of people don't get the experiences to build that into their lives. So when they're faced with a situation like that, they're not really equipped to react.
And do you think that that's because they're not really thinking about threats or they're not really preparing? Because I think that's one of the things that I've really have appreciated about our relationship is just like the preparation. Like even just, I know we had produced some content during COVID about a go bag and like, just kind of like having like a rendezvous point for the family, having like code words, and certain things. Do you just think that people are just not, really kind of like thinking of safety, or they feel overly safe, or like what do you think is really kind of because like I feel like some people are just not prepared, and I don't know like if it's just like, because I jokingly, during COVID, I think people were like, not that I was a doomsday prepper, but like I was just like, like you just didn't know what was going to happen, right? Like it was very scary for a little while just to be like, oh man, like this could really go south, like, and we don't know, like.
And many people would say we're on the verge of a time now where that preparation for things to go south may even be more important, right? With some of the outlooks for what might happen in the future. I think it's a combination of things. One, these days, everybody wants a hack. Everybody wants a simple thing. Nobody wants to put time and effort and sacrifice into something. Hey, I want to be safe. I want to make my family safer. Show me 3 hacks to make this simple. Hey, is there an
5
app?
tips? Like 5 tips to become
Is there
safe.
an app I can download? What can I do? And you know what? There are plenty of things that can enhance that you can do. But the thing is you have to be intentional. And by intentional, it means I got to put time into it. I went from Northern Virginia to downtown DC today to be here at the studio. All right. I have to stop and think, where am I going? what am I going to do when I get there? What preparation do I need to make? What is my safety posture there?
Yeah.
For my case, okay, I'm not going to be able to carry my gun into DC, so got to leave that at home.
Yeah.
And
Do you carry your gun quite a bit? And
I like these days to have it in my vehicle. Mostly,
Yeah.
I don't often anymore carry it on my person unless I'm going somewhere or doing something where I think I'd need it.
Yeah.
Or could need it. But these days in your car, you could be pulling into a gas station to get gas, or
carjacked.
the carjacking, or witnessing
Something
somebody
happening.
else. I had a friend who just he and his wife were driving through Alabama, pulled in to get gas and a snack, and witnessed a murder, and then the guy started shooting up everybody, into the gas station and tried to enter the gas station. So it can happen anywhere, anytime. But people aren't putting the proper thought into before they do something.
Yeah.
And then are you building in when you go somewhere? Are you focused on your? Most of us walk around looking at a phone like this. They're not engaged around them. If I'm a bad guy, if I want to assault you, if I want to rape somebody, if I want to carjack somebody, I'm looking at people,
Easy
and
targets.
choosing my target, and the one that's occupied
That's
with
distracted.
something else.
Yeah,
And
distracted.
so if you're not engaged in your environment, you're unable to pick up the threats. The earlier you pick up a potential threat,
Yeah.
the more options and time you have to react to it. And the longer I wait, then the more sudden it is, like, oh, I gotta, knock this weapon out of my face,
Yeah.
or do something. When if I see it 2 blocks away, I can turn and go another direction and do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the kind of key, like, foundational, like, learnings that I've learned from you is, like, to your point, situational awareness has really, like, been top of mind over the past couple of years of, like, where's the exit? Like, where do I want to sit? Like, I always joke, like, I always do, kind of the battle parking, or what do you call it? Like,
Combat parking.
combat parking.
Yeah, those basics, like,
You know,
like, here's the entrance I came in. What are alternate exits if something happens? What is cover? So cover is something that will block bullets or projectiles. So what around me and my family could serve as cover if I needed to get people
Yeah.
behind it? Or what's concealment? And then how would I use that to get to an exit? Those basic things make all the difference in the world when something like a mass shooting happens in survival and getting out. So
And I think you brought up a good point. And so even just, kind of circling back to your friends in Alabama, like, is it the media that, or like that is kind of hyper focusing on just the gun violence and just violence in general? Or do you feel like we're becoming more violent as a society, as like, are we desensitized, because it just seems like over the past couple of years, we've seen more shootings, more folks coming in with guns and shooting up a bar or a school or something. So what do you think, from someone that's a military expert that's kind of seen this stuff in, like, in combat settings, like, why is that landing here on our doorstep? Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd love to get your take on it.
Part of that's a philosophical view. For me, it's part of an overall moral decay in society. Some of the aspects of a moral decay are changing laws where we are decriminalizing some violent actions. There's movements where police are either cut back or restricted in what they can do or will do, or there are not enough police around to react. So we're in an environment like that. It emboldens people to act out because there's not a consequence. If I want to do like a flash mob on a store,
Hmm.
um, if I know there's very little consequence, hey, there are a lot of people these days who say, "Hey, let's do that."
Yeah, I've seen that.
Uh,
That's crazy. I just saw City Center right down the street, one of the high-end retail stores right before Christmas. I think they stole like $300,000 worth of purses at the Chanel store. You know, they just came in, a group of people, and I think they ended up using a fire extinguisher as like a decoy. Like they were like,
yeah,
they were spraying, the employees with the fire extinguisher. And then, but to your point, like I, like I think, depending on where this is, I don't think that this is a political thing, right? I just think that it's like just human decency. Like you just can't run into a place, start stealing everything, and then just like not have consequences. Like, I mean, I just think that that just kind of sets the precedence. And you've seen a lot of the companies like in San Francisco, like leave because they're just like, we just can't operate here, because there's no law or there's no kind of, um, recourse for this type of crime. So like, and I'd love to get your take on it because like I feel like, from a military and a police force and things like that, like where is there some disconnect there that, we're not seeing just as a society and a culture, like because like I'm curious about that is where are the police,
but, I I have views that are probably fairly conservative, right? And
Yeah.
I tend to lean towards policing rules, prosecutions, um, stopping crime,
Yeah.
and I believe that old break window policy,
Oh yeah.
that
The
if you
whole,
stop people from breaking the windows on the street, then you in turn stop bigger crimes. But I think it's more important these days to look at ourselves first. How society got to this place is because we as individuals got to this place.
that's a
And
good point.
well, we've
Because it
had,
starts with you, right? Like
it
everything
starts
starts.
with us. We've had a good run of it for the last, since World War II.
Yeah.
The people, particularly here in the U.S., we've gotten better educations. We've gotten better jobs. The economy overall has greatly
We're
improved.
the richest society
Uh,
ever that ever lived.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's be honest. We're spoiled rotten.
We're
Being
soft a little bit too.
here,
Yeah.
we're the privileged, right?
Yeah.
As people talk about people of privilege living in the U.S. is certainly given us privilege, but with that privilege, we become, I think, somewhat lazy on our self-reliance because we all want to be engaged, whether that's with our hobby or being more productive at work or engaging in other activities, leisure activities, work, whatever that we we have been able to farm out stuff. So we became reliant on police to take care of us, court systems, um, to provide a safe environment. Well, many of us stopped, playing outside and having that exposure to having to make decisions about and what
Just
was
being
safe.
outside,
Yeah,
right?
what's safe to do, like jump out of this tree what or not. And now by doing that, we've sort of let those spidey senses and our situational awareness slip.
Mm-hmm.
So now here we are that um, we often aren't prepared
Yeah.
to what do, and since we farmed it out, a big important thing that I've realized is if I give my security over to somebody else, then if I want security, I'm beholden to somebody else to provide it.
Yeah.
If I'm beholden to somebody else, I can be enslaved by somebody else. So
That's a good point.
essentially, self-reliance is your basic building block for freedom. And, today a lot of people are worried about, like what are we want to blame police or or our local politicians or at the national level
We want to blame
about our
everybody.
problems,
Yeah.
but we got to look at ourselves.
Got to be accountable for
Yeah,
what,
accountable yourself. And if you want to be accountable, then you need to shoulder some of that responsibility. And some of that responsibility is to inform yourself, become knowledgeable, take the
train.
time
Yeah.
to prepare. You don't have to become a martial artist, but you do have to think about what you're doing and be intentional about your personal safety.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things, and thank you again, for this. And we were having a conversation before the podcast about just the shooting lesson that we received with Brian and my brother. To this day, one of my brother's all-time favorite experiences, he always is like, "How's Gary?" And things like that. And now he's really into kind of educating himself on, kind of protecting his family, and he's down in Florida. So, so I think a lot of it is, and I think you're absolutely right, is like taking accountability and learning the skills, and I don't want to say that they're man skills, because that doesn't really sound, politically correct in that thing, but like just having that understanding of how do you handle a gun, or like, we were also joking about one of your viral videos that you have on social media about, the skinny jeans, like how like you should have a lighter, a handkerchief, and a pocket knife,
Right.
Just as like something that you carry on your person, because you never know when you may need it, right? So like, what do you think, where did we lose that kind of like, because I know, you grew up, and I think we all grew up like pre-internet, where like we were jumping out of a tree, and we were, playing in the field and staying
Right.
out past,
Yeah,
with the
even if
street
it's
lights,
down the street, right? And come home after dark, right? And,
Yeah.
have to negotiate the other hoods
Kids,
that
yeah.
are on the sidewalk and
Yeah, absolutely.
and get home. Yeah, so
So
and
what, and just to kind of, have a question is like, what are some of those skills that, like to a young man or a family that's listening to this podcast, like what are some skills that you are like the basic foundational skills,
so I think really what we're getting at is resourcefulness.
Yep.
And I think that resourcefulness is one of the things that has slipped. We may be resourceful in figuring out, some new technique or new thing that we're going to do on our laptops, but resourceful as far as everyday life emergencies, even minor things is a skill, and it's not just a skill; it's a way of thinking. Now, do I think that, yeah, I'm a traditionalist in that respect, that the primary responsibility for that falls on a man in a family unit
Yeah.
or a husband and wife team, that being resourceful, being the guy, yes, we laugh about having a pocket knife, but hey, how many times have I had somebody have a splinter or something stuck, and hey, no problem, I got a pocket knife, I can get
Yeah.
it. Or
You need to
something's
cut
caught.
something, yeah.
Hey, one time I was on an escalator, and someone's kid's shoelace got stuck in the escalator, and people were piling up and falling, and the kid was screaming. And as I came down the escalator, I saw it. I was able to get my pocket knife out,
And
and just rode the escalator down to where the kid was stuck, and reached down and cut the shoelace, and everybody
Probably crisis
stopped.
averted. Yeah.
Right? And simple things like there are a lot of useful things you can do with a match or a handkerchief.
Oh yeah.
And that's just, I mean, it's a minor thing, but it's the man or the person that thinks like that equips themselves like
that has that. Yeah.
that is the one that tends to be the resourceful one. And it's not limited to men. I think it's a role, again, that most often falls to a man. But a lot of families I work with, it's actually the wife or mother, because the husband is too busy trying to push that career and
or running the
he's
company.
a successful executive.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're busy, but the mom becomes concerned about the kid's safety or the families had an incident, either a threat or one family once was in Hawaii when they thought
The nuclear weapon.
there was a nukes
nuclear
coming
attack,
from North Korea, so they were locked into a basement of this resort that they were at, and that shifted, and they decided we want to do some training and preparation for stuff like that. So yeah, it's not limited to men, but it takes somebody with a desire and an intent to be prepared, to be resourceful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's, if I really think of the vision that you have for Power of Prudence and what the work that we've been doing, it is building that. It's building the resourcefulness and like the resilience on like you doing it versus having someone else do it. So, that's a great segue into just kind of talking about, kind of 2024, we're just starting the year. If you're looking at this as top of the year, 2024 for us, we're launching the podcast. Talk a little bit about, some of the stuff that you're looking forward to. But before you do that, I'd love to kind of do like a year in review of 2023, because a lot of stuff happened in 2023, at least for you. And like, super excited and proud of the work that we did last year, from the Netflix special to the viral content to the Team House podcast. So talk a little bit about, from your perspective, how 2023 kind of played out,
2023, we had put together the outline and pieces of the Prudent Parenting course that we wanted to shoot. A lot of debate. We had considered going down a membership route and some other stuff first, but then when we started looking at families, if we want to put something out there, the desire to make that very first step, helping families, is what had us shift course and come up, focus on developing the Prudent Parenting course. So a lot of the year was putting together those individual lessons and all the things that go with it. Along that way, due to some other contacts that we made back in the Spook Stock era, I was asked to participate, year and a half ago or so,
year and a half
on
ago.
one documentary in conjunction with the CIA called First In, the CIA versus Bin Laden. That, maybe it wasn't the most viewed thing because it was on Reels.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, like, for example, I didn't have Reels.
Yeah.
So
limited distribution just because of the
limited.
Yeah.
And then, though, because of that and interaction with folks, I got asked to do some other projects, and again, in conjunction with the CIA. And one of those wound up being the Netflix series Spy Ops.
Mm-hmm.
So there is episode 7 titled Taliban Spies, is an episode about some missions I did in the agency that dealt with Taliban spies. So it's one of the 8 episodes in this series on Netflix. And then that had spun off, and we've worked together, did some interviews for some television
networks and things. CNN,
India, right?
Yeah. And that's a big audience, right? That's a big audience.
But so stuff in conjunction to promote the Netflix special, and now we're working on a network television show. Matter of fact, shooting part of that next week.
Next week for that. Yeah, that's great.
And I'm overdue. Supposed to be in Prague, Czechoslovakia, to shoot part of another TV series or documentary that is going to appear on a different network. And there's a couple other potentials, and in German television interviewed me for a hour-long special that they're doing. So yeah,
Excellent.
those were new, exciting opportunities to get the word out and
Yeah.
find who we are. Um, we did the together. You and I went to New York. Well, we did 2 Team House podcasts,
Yeah, big shout out to
and
Team House and that team. Like, we really appreciate us. You guys having us on. We'd love to have you guys on the podcast.
yeah,
Obviously.
Murphy and Dave,
Yeah,
Dave Park,
yeah, and Dean.
and
So yeah, so it's like I think and it's great though because we're almost at 1 million views on that initial one. I know we're gonna celebrate here in the next couple weeks and months when we do hit them. In we're creeping on the 1 million views on YouTube. So definitely check it out, and we'll put a link in the description for this so we can kind of get some traffic over to that and maybe get us over 1 million views on that one.
yeah, that's and I consider that a milestone because we've tried to work like this past year a lot on social media
Yeah.
and being a steady presence there, but we haven't put we haven't poured money into that or
Well, it's been
done
all
but
organic, right? I think one of the things was, I remember having this conversation around this time last year, where we were like, okay, let's be very intentional about the content that we're going to put out, and the funny part is like we had a lot of content that we had shot that was just sitting on hard drives that we were like, let's just, cut these down, put them up as little shorts, which they really resonated. I thought,
yeah, some of them did, right?
Yeah,
And it's odd because I haven't really figured that out. For example, our first interview, which I just did from my house for the Team House podcast, that had an initial burst of
yeah, 500,000 views and
370 initially, and then it just jumped up, and then it's gradually slowed down. We're at 10 months or so after that now, and it's approaching. I mean, and yeah, that's a big milestone for us.
Yeah,
1 million views, and but then that did so well, they had us up to New York in the studio to do that, and they did warn us, don't expect that it'll do that again.
Yeah.
And it's true. It didn't maybe
But it did well, and I think because we had such a huge, kind of reaction and views on the first one, I think, everyone was optimistic that like, oh, we can repeat it. But that's the interesting part. And I think that's, creating content is very interesting because like we put out a lot of content, and in the content that, we didn't really feel was particularly the best shot or whatever, or maybe not like the most engaging, really took off, so
you don't know. And I think what I'm learning, and one of the reasons that we're shifting to this longer format podcast type style content on YouTube is because I think what really resonates these days is you want to connect with somebody, and we all know there's 1 million people out there you can connect with. There's a bunch of SEALs and Delta guys and Special Forces guys
absolutely
teaching all kinds of things,
survivor skills, shooting, concealing carry,
a lot. And I hope that we're a different flavor with a different
perspective,
tone and perspective that is really more geared for families and everyday people. It's I feel it's part of my mission. I really don't want to go out and teach
shooting classes.
Shooting is great and it's an essential skill, but I believe that what we're doing empowers people. I'm concerned about our society. I'm concerned about tomorrow, and the tomorrow we're leaving our children. And there's a lot of ways that we can improve our own personal lot, but we have to improve ourselves and then focus on those key loved ones around us.
Teaching them. Yeah.
And you got to fix yourself before, like, was it Jordan Peterson that you need to clean up your own room before you go try to fix your society. And I think that the self-reliance and peace of mind and this peace that's crucial for all families, particularly given the turmoil that we seem to be experiencing now,
Yeah.
and might be looking at in the future. There's a lot of people talking about the stock market and the economy, and a lot of dire predictions about what might happen or what we might all go through.
Yeah.
And look at even now the numbers when you see how many people feel anxious, depressed, the reports in school, the increase in suicide, the increase in mass shootings, all related to these topics. And I think, God, I want to fix our society with that, but we can't unless we can fix ourselves and our families first. But then it is a part of that. And what I want, I think it's important that as a man or head of my family or the person that cares in my unit, or in my, just the way I'm built, that while I do want to help, how I take care of myself, and how I prepare my family ties in to how I interact with my community. And if we can take care of that small end first, in the end, all of us together doing that will have a big impact on society. And I have to believe that because,
you can't be a cynic. Yeah, you got to believe that there's some hope in like turning it around, and
there might be some bad stuff that's coming up here in the next couple years. It might be, but you know what? It's not the end of the world. Somebody, people that might want to hurt you or carjack you or assault you, they're out there.
Yeah.
But you know what? It doesn't mean that it's not worth living life and going to places and doing things.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, it all ties together.
Yeah.
But it has to start with the intention I want to make myself and my family safer.
Yeah. And then that's an amazing kind of like foundational thought, right? So, and I think as we're kind of building out, the podcast, and we're building out the content strategy for, this year and then ongoing, what, if you could look back at this episode and like, what would you want this channel to like evolve to, or like, what would you want this channel to be? Would it be like more guests coming on, more kind of like learning and lessons, stories? Like, like, how do you envision, some of this long format content, really coming together for you?
I think the long format gives us options.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those options is to do a little bit of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have courses and other avenues and resources to provide that will do a lot of that teaching. But the philosophy and background behind that, I think we can talk about in a longer format. We can talk more about what it means to individuals and in people's lives than you can when you're speaking on a lesson on a video.
Yeah.
I would like to bring in guests. I do have a wide range of friends, peers, acquaintances that have experiences and expertise in a lot of these areas that pertain to your family and your family's security and safety. And we'd like to be able to bring some of those people in.
Absolutely.
And have discussions. We'd like to take a look at, like, through the comments section on the channel, the YouTube channel. Hey, people can write in and
ask questions.
Ask questions and give us things that you'd like to see or issues you think you're facing. And now, for the most part, you might say it's a chicken thing, but I kind of want to stay out of politics as much as I can, but yet things that impact our safety and security, whether it's society or political, we'll get into that. I'm just going to stay away from picking winners and losers and naming villains.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not going to shy away from, some of those topics. I think for us, it's just more about like staying kind of core to the mission on like what we're trying to do. And like, I think sometimes social commentary or political commentary, it's really more like clickbaity, like they just want the tagline, or
I've been called now on some of the podcasts, baby killer, stuff like that, or part of the problem, part of the government control,
the military
mechanism.
complex. Yeah, the military.
And I just got recently called a Zogbot, and I didn't even know what that was. So I had to look it up. And so, yeah, but we'll take those too.
Yeah, and we always joke, at least behind the scenes we do. It's like, if you don't have any haters, then you're not really doing anything, right? So you can't play it too safe. I think one of the things that
those and the Chinese bots, because now I've rolled back my cover and it's come out that I talk about being CIA and stuff. I get a lot of these Chinese bot.
Like phishing scams or something like that, or
shows the picture of some young Chinese girl that wants to make my acquaintance.
Yeah, and, I can imagine.
I'm sure it's all bot stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all above board. No, I mean, I think I'm super excited just because, like, I just know, one of the things that I've really enjoyed over the past, couple months and years is like just executing on, getting, to work. I know we've been talking about getting into the studio for the past, month or so. So, really appreciate you making the drive. Obviously, where we live and coming into the city is always, we live, it's there's always something going on, construction, traffic, and everything. One of the key things that I really want to emphasize on this podcast, especially for the Power of Prudence as kind of like a pillar, is like, we definitely want to create just educational content, engaging content, stuff that's entertaining. We'll like, to your point, we're going to have a lot of, special guests that have amazing stories and interesting backgrounds. But I think a lot of it is like, we want to make it accessible to everybody, right? Like, I don't think that this is just for a specific demographic or a person. So like, we really want to make it, and we'd love to get some feedback, right, from our audience, right? Like, what kind of content there, to your point earlier, it's like, we're going to be in the comments. So like, if they want to hear more about traveling abroad and, what there's some things, like, I know we've done a lot of trainings for organizations, and like, a lot of these families are traveling, and, like, how do you keep protected? So talk a little bit more about, over the next couple minutes, about some of the courses that you've offered in the past, for, some of these, kind of like private groups and things like that, just because I know that a lot of people, whether it's a family office, a small family, a company, or someone out there that's looking to kind of keep their employees or family safe, like, what are some of the things that you've offered in the past?
One common one has been like anti-assault training, anti-kidnap training.
Mm-hmm.
So the anti-assault has always, always begin with situational awareness, how to perceive threats and how to react to threats as you see them. So then sometimes I've been asked to do basic self-defense. I made it a promise to myself not to teach any one martial art or self-defense technique. I've had several. I was a black belt in one, and as a Delta guy, studied another. And I've had those trainings. I've used them in fights, confrontations, in combat, and once I made a citizen's arrest. So, I mean, those are things, but I think when I work with someone, I like to teach make space and get away.
Yeah.
Because if you have one martial art Krav Maga is a very popular now.
Hmm.
If you have a martial art that you like and want to study, and do that, because what you practice is what you become proficient at.
Yeah.
So I kind of take the tack of, hey, I'm not going to teach you one of those. You do whichever of those you think is best, but I'll teach you how to do first, how to avoid needing it,
Yeah.
and then if you need it, how to make space to get away.
Yeah.
Another popular one has always been the anti-kidnapping training. I think that a lot of people think, well, what do you mean? Well, we by doing the other things we teach you, you should be able to avoid being kidnapped
Yeah.
and how to recognize that. But also, it's really important that as a kidnap attempt goes on, how, even if you're going to be overpowered or taken by somebody with a gun,
Yeah.
how you can stack circumstances in your favor as that goes down to allow you to survive it and then later escape. And yeah, you know what? Everybody loves escape training because you put duct tape on people and they learn
Zip
how to get
ties,
out,
yeah.
or zip tie people and blindfold people, tie people up. And, some of it's kind of like bar tricks. Some of them, I think, kind of want to use it for bedroom tricks, and
Absolutely.
or at least how to get out of those.
Yeah.
And so that's always and it does feel liberating and empowering
Yeah.
when so many people become victims of crimes, or killed by being first restrained by rope, duct tape, or zip ties.
Yeah.
And when you learn that, wow, here's real ways I can get out, I don't have to be a victim. Yeah,
It's a little empowering, yeah.
it's empowering. So those, for women, what to do in parking lots and parking garages has always been fairly popular, and just different things with teaching the same skills but to different age groups. One we came out with after this past year, and all the random violence and people pushing people in front of subways and stuff. What to do, and like in a subway station, and how to be safe in that
Absolutely,
crowd.
yeah. No, especially big metropolitan areas, New York, DC, where there's a lot of, commuters on trains and different public transportation. So I know the next couple weeks we're going to be busy, like we're going to launch the course, then, I'd love to talk, spend a couple minutes on just, some of the things that you're looking for as far as the course is concerned. I know we cut a lot of the promos that we're going to be rolling out earlier today. So like, what are some of the things that, that you're looking forward just on the course launch,
We're going to launch the Prudent Parenting course, and it's a video course. It's going to be a cohort, so we're going to go through it as the people go through it with the Facebook lives, so that we can, I can answer questions that come in by comment, or hit key points and review and kind of, summarize and encourage people, or talk about issues that people tend to seem to be having as we go through that course. And I look forward to that because I want to watch people go through this and hear back from people and engage with everybody to see, what are the things they see that they really like, or, what would they like to change. And we'll do that together. And, I'm looking forward to that, just to kind of gauge where we want to go with that same course,
Yeah.
in the future, and to use this as the springboard for other courses and other events. We are envisioning doing live events, or do a boot camp
Yeah.
that people can come to, separate from the course, which is online.
Yeah.
If you want that in person and you want hands-on, you want to be taught some of these techniques,
Yeah.
or go to a food court in a mall and
Practical. Yeah.
and do like scenarios and
real world
life
scenarios. No, and obviously we've done a couple things at Silver Eagle, and O'Gara, and then obviously BSR, right?
Right.
Is as well. So no, I mean, I think it's exciting, right? We got plenty of, things that we've developed over the years that we're really excited to kind of launch and just kind of get out to folks, things like that. So I think, as we're kind of building this out, like we'll see more of the course. I think, one of the things that I'm excited about is like those micro lessons that we had been discussing. It's like, it's not like 5 tips of like what you can do, but it's more like, things to consider, like, and then obviously you can expand on that, a little bit more, like how that's going to work. But no, super excited, Gary. Thank you so much for, coming out. This is the first of many, so we'll definitely kind of keep, make sure that everyone kind of subscribes, sets their notifications to this, because we're going to be, releasing these on a weekly basis, and obviously, do some of these little shorter clips, for bite-sized content. So excited about it.
Yeah, me too, Hugo. And thanks a lot for helping me. And as we kick this first Power of Prudence podcast off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
thanks.
absolutely. So we'll catch you guys on the next podcast. You guys be well and be safe.